Welcome back, folks. Episode number 10 of the Get a Grip on Life podcast. That's right. Who we have today? Carlyle Jansen. She's an interesting lady, man. She's an entrepreneur. She owns a store down on 175 Harvard Street. That's right. Harvard and Bathurst. It's called the Good for Her Sex Shop. And, you know, it's interesting. It's probably good for him, too. So we talked a lot about sexuality, and we talked a lot about different issues relating to it, and her store and her journey as an entrepreneur. So, you know, it was interesting because the person I met and the person I thought I was going to meet were two totally different people. She's super cool, super warm, very friendly, the type of person that if you want to go talk about this kind of stuff, she's the kind of person you want to talk to. No kidding. So go to at Good for Her store. They got a YouTube channel. She's on Facebook. All those links are going to be put on the getagriponlife.com website, so you can check her out there. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Get a Grip Studios. That's right. I'm sitting in Get a Grip Studios right now recording this show. And hey, man, you got a message you want to get out there? Yeah. What about you, lady? You have a message you want to get out there? What do you want to do? Well, if you want to start a podcast and you don't want to worry about anything else, you just want to worry about your message and your guests. Who you're going to bring on, who you're going to talk to, whether you're going to talk to anybody, you're going to talk to yourself, you're going to talk to the camera, whatever. We can take care of all of that for you. Distribution, production, recording, social media, RSS feeds, all the technical parts of putting out a podcast and getting it to people the way they want to view it. Your responsibility as a new media creator is to give people the message in the manner they want to receive it. So being on YouTube is not enough. Being on, on Apple iTunes podcast, yeah, it's great, but it's not enough. You got to hit all those channels if you want to build the largest audience possible. And if it's worth doing, man, it's worth doing right. So go to getagripstudios.com, baby. But for right now, check out Carlyle Jansen. She's awesome. Episode 10, Get a Grip on Life. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Life podcast, Carlyle.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, is this the first time you've ever done a podcast?
I think I've done a couple before. I do more video than audio.
Yeah, this is going to be video recorded as well.
Okay.
But, you know, a podcast is generally the characteristic of it is that it's a long-form conversation that is unrehearsed.
Right. Okay.
So, a lot of people say, oh, yeah, I've done video logs, I've done this, but podcasts are kind of a unique thing. So.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start about your entrepreneurial journey. So you're a coach, you're a speaker, and then you own a sex shop in Toronto. Which one came first?
I guess it was the speaking. I started doing workshops, and it grew out of my sister's bridal shower.
Okay.
I gave her some sex toys at her bridal shower,
okay,
and all of her friends asked all kinds of questions. I thought they were all going to bring similar things, but they brought salad bowls and wine glasses.
Sure.
So
you spiced it up a little bit.
I did spice it up a bit, and they asked lots of questions. And, what is that thing, and where do you stick it, and what does it do? So I explained it to them, and they said, you're so comfortable talking about sex, you should teach workshops. And I thought, well, that sounds like fun. So I started teaching. My first workshop was my sister and her friends.
Well, hey, first of all, were you always comfortable talking about sex? Okay.
No, right. I was not. In fact, I could barely say the word penis or vagina a few years before that. And part of that was having grown up in a family where we didn't talk about sex. I saw my mom kiss my dad once on the cheek. That was it. Do you remember?
So you were never privy to your parents' eroticism at all?
Oh, God.
You had no idea how you were made or anything like that?
I mean, your friends tell you about it, right? And then you had the Judy Blume books that sort of expanded a little bit. And Sue Johansson, before she made it big, used to go around to schools, and she came to my high school in grade 10.
Okay.
And my mom's comment was, don't get any ideas about taking your clothes off. So I said, no, I'm not going to take my clothes off. And I didn't, because sex terrified me.
Sure.
It was very scary. I didn't know anything about my own pleasure. I didn't know anything about partner pleasure. It all just kind of felt really weird. So I just did sports. Okay. And that was helpful for a few years. And then I was 21, and I thought, I can't really avoid this for the rest of my life.
Sure.
And I would date, and then I'd kind of get scared and run away whenever it got kind of intimate. And so then I'd find somebody else that I was attracted to.
Intimacy can be terrifying.
It's terribly terrifying.
Sure.
Whether it's physical intimacy or talking about emotions. I remember the first time my first partner we got in an argument, and I was surprised when he called the next day. And I thought, you mean we're still together? I was like, yeah, we're still together. We just had an argument.
That's interesting.
But I had never seen that modeled either, right?
Sure.
So sex was kind of scary, and the first time I had sex with this particular person, we started getting naked, and I freaked out, and I said, "I'm terrified of your penis. Like I've never seen one before.
Right.
I don't know what it's supposed to do.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do."
Yeah.
So he was actually very sweet. He gave me a little guided tour. He kind of showed me around all the sensitive parts, and kind of, it was a nice little getting to know you session.
Yeah, sure.
And I thought, okay, I think we can make friends.
There you go.
And when we had sex, though, I had no clue what I was doing. And then, there was this build, and I'm like close to that edge of orgasm, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? And we were just kind of hanging out there, and finally he stopped it and he said, "Well, tell me what you like." And I looked at him and I said, "But aren't you the one who's supposed to know that?" So he was the first one who said, maybe you might want to discover your own body and pleasure yourself.
Sure.
So I did. I've tried to figure it out. For 2 years, I tried to have an orgasm. Nothing worked. And so I just gave up.
You just gave up.
I practiced with him. I practiced on my own. I read books. I tried all kinds of things. And I just decided that.
Is it unique for each woman?
How to orgasm?
Yeah, like for dudes, it's pretty. I don't think it's that complicated. I think it's a little more complicated.
Not as complicated for men, that's for sure. For women, it is a lot more complicated. Everyone's got different erogenous zones. Everyone likes something a little bit different. So I run workshops on learning how to orgasm,
right? Because
there's lots of women who can't, don't know how to get there. And so I gave up after 2 years and thought, some people are tall, some are short, some are good at math, others are better at art.
Sure.
Some orgasm, some don't. And I always kind of feel like, if you've never tasted chocolate cake, you don't know what you're missing.
Sure.
So you don't miss it.
Right.
So orgasm was like, oh, well, it's this thing, until I got dumped.
Okay.
And somebody dumped me many years later because I couldn't orgasm.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, this is now getting in the way. I got to figure this out. And a friend of mine told me to buy a back massager and use it as a vibrator. And that was that.
That was that.
It's
just interesting because, I read, and I always talk about Matt about all the stuff I've read in books. But there was, in the Victorian era, there was a phenomenon of doctors massaging women to orgasm. They used to have a name for it.
Hysteria.
Hysteria or something like that. Yes.
Yeah.
And women would come for it more and more. And these doctors were discussing manuals and how to do it and all this kind of thing. And
well, if women had emotions, they thought that it was the uterus that was floating around inside the body. And you needed to have an orgasm in order for it to settle and, calm you down. So the prescription was, an orgasm. And because it was clitoral stimulation, it wasn't considered sex. So a medical doctor could do this. This was a medical procedure. This was not sex because there was no vaginal stimulation involved. And these women who probably never had their clit stimulated by a partner before, I think, thought, hey, this is pretty great.
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to go back and see this doctor.
Yeah, this doctor's great.
And they were getting really tired. It was hard work.
The doctors had 6 appointments a day.
At least,
maybe
I don't
8.
know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly how many
it's
they had.
It's kind of weird, though, when we're laughing about it. But in some ways, it's kind of weird. And it's kind of, you wish that, maybe things were different back then. But I don't know, how we... I think our culture is a little bit funny when it comes to sex. I don't know how to describe it. It's like there's too much overt. There's too much covert. Yeah. There's no I went to an all boys high school.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I look back on it now, and we had a certain I don't know how to put it the right way. There was a reverence for women that I think is lacking now. Or I don't know. I don't want to make it a women or men thing. It was a reverence for the opposite sex, that there was something there, that they were mysterious. And I kind of liked that mystery a little bit. And I think our society lacks that a little bit. And then there's also I don't know how to describe what I'm trying to tell you here.
No, I see what you're saying. And I think, mystery is what keeps excitement alive, right? And I think that's one of the things, that often goes in relationships.
Sure.
After, 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, you lose that mystery. And it's interesting that, you thought of girls, women as this mystery and this mysterious beings.
Yeah, they were like, if you
what
could
buttons do you push?
if you could bring a girl to a party, you were like a legend.
Right. Where'd you find one of those?
Yeah, where did you get that? Did you get more of those? Will they come? Will they stay? What do we have to do to make them come back?
Yeah.
Oh man, it was fun times. But so this entrepreneurial journey of yours, so you started off like that, and you know it was your own experience that brought you to this.
Very much so.
And you got to this wedding, and then people said, "Hey, gosh, you know, you're real comfortable with this," and obviously it was an earned comfort.
Yeah, very much. I mean, well, it kind of, you know how when you start learning something and you don't really realize how you're getting more comfortable with it. And when they said you're comfortable talking about sex, I was like, what, me? Because I had never felt comfortable talking about it. But because I've been practicing and learning and reading and all of those things, it had gradually become more comfortable to me. And I realized, oh, I'm more comfortable than them. And, so.
Oh, I'm more comfortable than most people.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I should stand up in front of people and.
Right. Well, I'm an exhibitionist.
I'm sure it was nerves in the beginning. No, I'm not saying any of that, but I mean, I don't know what the deal. I don't know exactly how your presentations work, but I mean, I think that you're right. It kind of comes in stages, and people urge you a little bit. So when did you decide to take what were you doing before you decided to go on this journey?
I had gotten a business degree.
Okay.
And I had been living in a small town called Old Crow, north of the Arctic Circle in the Yukon.
Whoa. Okay.
And I was working for the First Nation there after my business degree. And then I'd gone back to school to do kind of a version of a planning degree and learning
like
about...
a city planning degree?
Well, it was called Whole Systems Design. It was out of Antioch University. And it was more about looking at systems. So whether it be an ecological system, a family system, a country system, an ecosystem, and what are all the patterns that replicate themselves in different systems. And I had focused on environmentalism and education. And then I had just finished when my sister's bridal shower happened, and I was thinking like, okay, am I going to plunge back into the business world? What am I going to do? And this was a real turning point for me. And I decided that, I'm interested in sex, and why don't I try that?
Okay. And the rest is history.
More or less, yeah. I mean, I started doing some workshops, and when I started, it was before, so we opened the store in 97. So when I started, it was 95, and there wasn't much internet back then.
Yes.
So how do you advertise, right? How do you get the word out there? And especially when it comes to sex.
Sure.
How are you going to attract people to come to your workshop if they don't know who you are and where you're coming from? So I rented out the YMCA.
Okay.
Because I thought, well, people will feel
it's
comfortable.
It's a safer space.
Yes, yeah,
sure.
Nothing crazy is going to go on there.
Yes.
And, you're not going to have somebody, taking their clothes off or whatever, right? And also, my name's Carlyle. Like, what kind of a woman has a name Carlyle? So who's going to sign up for something where, is that really a woman? Is that a guy? Is that a creepy person? So the Y was kind of comfortable, and I marketed mostly towards women, and they just said, we want a comfortable place where we can shop, and we want more workshops. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that would be my vehicle really for advertising the workshops.
Okay. So it was it was part of your marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Okay. How long ago? That was 96, 97.
Yeah.
Now, I can't think of a business which would be more devastated by online sales than your business.
Well,
like if someone said anecdotally, like light bulbs are getting destroyed by Amazon and all these other, I'm not complaining about it, but we sell online as well, but I can't think of a business that would be more susceptible to online sales.
Because people want to be private around sex. Yeah, absolutely. The issue though is that, you might replace your light bulb, and you know what kind of light bulb you need. Right? And you might, be able to choose between two or three, but more or less they're the same. And if it doesn't work, you're going to buy another one. And, it's a few dollars of investment, yada, yada.
Right.
When it comes to sex toys, I don't know what I want. And how big is it, really, when I look at the picture? And how powerful is it, really? And is it soft? Is it hard? So
there's a value-added sell there.
Absolutely. Right. And people really want to, and so we have all of our toys out on the shelf. We have a demo out so that you can feel it in your fingers, and you can, touch it and get a sense of what it really feels like and compare it to others, right? So you can see them right beside each other, which I think really helps to make an educated decision. And people often, they don't know what they want. So they're coming to us saying like, I don't know, I want to buy a vibrator. What should I get? Or the classic question is, what's the best vibrator? Well, really depends, right? Like,
Right.
do you need a lot of stimulation? Do you want it for internal? Do you want it external? Do you want it to be discreet? Do you want to use it with a partner, on your own? All kinds of things. So people come to us because they trust that they can ask questions and get answers, and we'll ask them questions to sort of help suss out, like, what would be a good option for you, so that the $30, $100, $200 that you're investing hopefully will be well spent.
And how many stores do you have now?
One.
Just one. Okay. And how many staff do you, is that enough? Is that enough?
I've been asked many times to franchise.
Sure.
And I've thought about opening in other places. Here's the thing is I really like being involved, knowing my customers. I see people who come back, I haven't seen them for years, and then they come back again, or I watch their evolution, and it's just so lovely, and I love being involved. I don't want to be sort of this absentee owner. So the thought of spreading myself between two businesses and two locations just feels exhausting.
What's funny is that there's a lot of pressure on growth for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like people feel like they always have to grow their business,
which is nutty.
It is a little nutty. I think it comes from. I think there's a difference. So in years ago, there would be people that were sole proprietors, and then there'd be corporations.
Yeah.
Right now, but because of legal liability, everybody starts a corporation now.
Yeah.
But not everybody is really running a corporation. You're kind of like a sole proproprietor.
Yeah.
In that you have your shop. You like your shop. You do your workshops. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And that's enough for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what are you talking about? You're not a true entrepreneur, whatever. I think there's a model for that, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel pressure to grow, and they hire more people, and then they're more stressed out because they're trying to train people.
Yeah, and then you've got more costs, right? Like we're trying to figure out. I've been looking for a bigger space for years, but when I look at it for a bigger space, I'm like, wow, is it really worth it to get a bigger space? Am I going to sell that much more, or am I going to be totally stressed out about
because you can't pay your rent and your payroll, right?
Yeah. So there's definitely. And it's not like I almost closed 4 years ago. Almost closed.
What happened?
Well, I just had, 17 years of just scraping by.
Yeah, sure. Sure, I get that.
Just scraping by, and eventually I was like, oh my God, I got friends around me and they're talking about retirement. Like, I just want to pay my bills.
Sure.
Like retirement, what's that?
Yeah, a lot of people have there's like the myth of the entrepreneur. Oh, you're so lucky. You get to do whatever you want. No one gets to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And it's
a double-edged sword.
Sure.
Right? Like, I can take holidays whenever I want, completely.
Except nobody pays me.
Exactly.
It could be a permanent vacation.
Yeah. And so I've had many months where I didn't pay myself. Not enough money in the bank. Can't pay yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had years like that.
Yeah.
Where, I was saving all my capital for an entire year.
Yeah.
And stuff like that where, a lot of people don't understand what entrepreneurs go through, and I think that it's interesting that you kind of found your niche in that in that smaller model. How much do you charge for your workshops?
Yeah.
Okay, and how does that work? How do you gain customers for that?
So we do a lot of marketing and social media. We have it on our website. I think that's one of the things that really distinguishes us from a lot of other sex shops is the workshops that we offer. And sometimes we have, I would say on average, we have 3 a week.
And you run all of them, or do you have employees that run some?
So it's a bit different than my staff. Basically, anybody's welcome to come and say, hey, I have a great idea for a workshop. And if it seems interesting, we'll try it.
Okay.
And so I've had some previous staff who've approached me about doing workshops and who are still doing them. And if any current staff want to do that. But most of the people who teach them are people who've sort of come to us and say, hey, I have this idea. And if they seem like they know what they're talking about, I'll try just about anything once.
The good for her.
Yeah.
So this is a sex shop targeted at women.
Primarily.
Right.
Especially, but not exclusively, we like to say.
Right. Okay. Sure. I understand that.
Yeah.
And are most of the attendees at your workshops women?
Yes.
And what are they learning about?
Well, our most popular workshop is giving great head.
Really?
Yes. We offer that about once a month.
Really?
And sometimes people cry when they can't get into it, especially around Valentine's Day.
Okay.
So there's a lot of pressure then, I guess, for I guess the women finding the ways to learn about this in a safe environment. Is that what it is that you're feeling?
Yeah, I think people have questions. I think when it comes to, say, giving head, it's partly a lot of women don't enjoy it, but they know their partner likes it, and they're like, how do I, it's really hard putting a big thing in your mouth and feeling comfortable.
Sure.
It's anytime a guy says to me, like, what's a big deal? I'm like, here, I'll give you a dildo. You give it a go. Tell me how that works for you. It's a lot harder to go down on a penis than a vulva.
Okay.
And so a lot of women don't enjoy it. They gag, their jaws clamp up, they're uncomfortable, they feel this pressure. I have to deep throat, I have to do it perfectly, So, and sometimes women come though because they just want to do it better.
Right.
They're like, I just want to get better at this. I enjoy it and I just want to be good at it. So, so that's our most popular workshop. Unfortunately, that's the most popular. No, unfortunately, oral sex on women or cunnilingus, we sometimes run a couple times a year. Sometimes we don't get enough people.
Oh, really?
Yes. Which is
So
too
the
bad.
guys out there, I know everything. I already know how to do it.
I think it's like asking for directions. And I think the difference is that a lot of women are really happy to say, I don't know what I'm doing. Right? Like,
right.
We're really happy to be like,
how dare you generalize between men and women? How dare you?
And I think, but I do think that men attending a workshop on pleasuring women, I think the assumption is that I must be a lousy lover if I don't know what I'm doing.
Right, and I think that also there's, I think that it's probably. I know I wouldn't do it.
No,
I'd
why
have
not?
a hard time. Why
not?
I mean, I don't know. I just something I wouldn't do.
Would you do it privately? Would you do a private session to learn? Or how would you learn about pleasuring women? Here you're getting to know lots of new things.
How would I learn? I don't know. I just ask my wife. That's all. That's pretty much. And be sensitive to her needs, I guess. I've been married for 16 years.
Yeah.
So, and our marriage is good. So.
What if I told you that there are many things that she probably doesn't know?
That she doesn't know.
Correct.
Yeah, then
could enhance.
You know what I think? It's interesting. I think what a course like that could do for couples is I think you get stuck in a rut.
Absolutely.
A lot of couples do.
And,
people. I would say that, and again, how dare me? But most people want a conventional relationship.
Yeah, sure.
Most people want to be, and there's a lot of people that are diverse in how they choose to live their lives and the type of relationships they're in. But most people that are raising a family and all that, they want to be in a monogamous relationship and they want to have some excitement. I think it's hard. I think it's tougher for people than they think when they start out to keep excitement and all that. And
completely.
I'm open to ideas. I don't know if I would go to a course that had a specific curriculum.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, it's not for everybody.
No, I think I'd rather it be less curriculum based and more sort of sensuality based. If that makes sense.
Yep.
Because I technically I'd be uncomfortable with like a technical session.
Right.
Does that make sense? Am I representing some I wouldn't mind going on a retreat with my wife somewhere where where people discuss things, but technical, I don't know if I'm going to get technical.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Carlyle? Am I missing something here?
It all depends, right? Like you could talk to anybody in any service, right? I could be a financial expert and I'd be like, you could learn some new things about how to better manage your finances, right?
But I don't want to get technical.
You know what? I'm doing okay. I don't feel like I need it. Like you don't have to learn about sex.
Right. Agreed.
Right?
But it's also but I think people are more awkward and vulnerable and scared.
Yes.
But I think, you know what? I'm very comfortable in financial affairs.
Yeah.
So I do want to get technical, actually, when it comes to finance.
Okay.
You show me exactly how this all works.
Yeah.
I suppose some people are more comfortable with talking about sex and really uncomfortable talking about money. But those are two of the most
those are big
intimidating things in the world, right? Money and sex.
Yeah.
And they kind of go together in some ways sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and what I find with our workshops is I ask a lot of questions like who's going to be there and what's going to happen.
Sure.
And they attend one workshop and they look around, they're like, oh, they're all people kind of like me. Oh, wow, they all have questions kind of like me. Oh, wow, I'm not the only one who didn't know this thing. And then they sign up for 4 more.
But that's mostly women, or is it both?
Mostly women. Guys sometimes do also. Often what'll happen is that they say, well, my wife or my girlfriend took the giving head workshop, and it kind of worked out well in my favor. So I thought I might return the favor. So it's a little bit different for guys. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit more of a barrier to entry there, personally, for them.
Yeah.
So tell me, from the store perspective, what's changed from 97 to 2018 in terms of sales? Have you had to do more to gain sales? Is it easier now than it was? Is it more of a price war?
So our business has always been largely based on word of mouth.
Okay.
Whether it be therapists recommending us for workshops or for products for their clients, public health clinics for people who are looking for products, friends. We do a lot of bachelorette parties. One bachelor party, thousands of bachelorette parties. And with online, what we have is people find us online because of our reviews. So that's been helping us, and I think that's what shifted things about 4 years ago.
And then, you mean that you started, you stopped, you were in trouble, and then you started to grow again?
We were always kind of on that edge, and then I think some of our online reviews kind of started kicking in and started helping out. We do social media advertising. We don't do much traditional advertising anymore.
Yeah, that's tough.
And we try and, for us, our advertising is the customer service that we give. That's really our advertising.
Sure.
Unfortunately, not everybody's going to go back to work or to their friends and say like, hey, I had this great experience and I bought a vibrator. It was really fabulous.
Sure. And there's people that really explained how everything worked to me, and I feel so much better that I went there and it wasn't weird. It was nice.
So not everybody's going to spread the news about who we are. So that's makes it harder for us. But I do think that if people have a good experience, and I hope that part of what we do is take some of the shame out of it so that people don't feel like they have to hide. I mean, obviously you're not going to go and talk to your boss or your coworkers and say, hey, I bought a vibrator.
Well, you might, but
within a context, right?
I think a lot of people want that out of the work environment.
Exactly.
In a way, less of that. Yeah. So.
And for me, it boils down to consent, right? Like if you're having a conversation about sex and it comes up, that's fine.
Yes.
And people are interested in sharing stuff, but generally in the workplace, that's not consensual kind of discussion. Yes. But somebody, shares maybe that they're having struggles in their relationship or, whatever, who knows what comes up in discussion, and like, hey, well, I went to this place and it's called Good for Her, and you can look online or you can go and check them out, and they're really friendly and you can ask questions and there's no silly questions. And, I find that becomes our advertising.
How do you the idea of overcoming shame, do people overcome it when they arrive at the store for the workshop? Is that the process of overcoming it, or is there something that you work with them on to overcome it?
It's a lot of different things. I think part of it is that we don't have things in our windows that scream sex shop. So people actually in our neighborhood in the annex often don't know what we sell.
Where are you in the annex? So
we're on Harvard Street, right across from Central Tech High School.
Yeah, I've driven by your store. I don't think I know. Yeah, you definitely
you would
not.
Know. You would know.
Yeah, you're not broadcasting it.
Right.
Yes.
And that's partly by design.
It's more like one of those high-end lingerie stores that doesn't have as much lingerie in the window or whatever. Yeah.
So partly that's because I want people walking through the door to know what they're walking into. And I want them to choose to walk in the door. And I don't want people walking in saying like, hey, here's a sex shop. Let's go check things out, and waving dildos in each other's faces.
Yeah, joking around. Yeah,
that makes
for sure
the other customers who are there for a particular purpose feel uncomfortable. So, we're all about having fun, and we're all about laughing and having a good time.
Sure, but not being silly and
right.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean. I had a customer called Lovecraft. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, of course.
So I knew I used to do their lighting. They had one place in Yorkville and they had another one in Mississauga.
Yes.
And I used to do lighting.
Yeah.
And this is a long time ago. And yes.
Yeah.
And then there was two ladies. I think one was the manager, one was the owner. I can't remember which one was which. But we would they had old track lighting.
Yeah.
And so when I just started my electrical contracting site, they would have us down to fix their track lighting a lot. And I would go there and help the electricians or whatever, just so I could make more money on each gig and keep the cost low for them and whatever. Yeah. And they used to ask people to leave their store a lot.
Really?
Yeah, because some people were like being silly and stupid or whatever, like not not being respectful. Not a lot. I remember seeing one time. Yeah. And then I asked them about it, and they said, "Yeah, that happens. That we have to ask people that are making other customers uncomfortable or whatever."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we try and create. So we're in it looks like a house. Mm-hmm. We don't have, people don't have to look around and see like who's watching me walk into the sex shop, because it doesn't look like they're walking into a sex shop, right? Yes. When we arrive, we offer you a cup of tea or water, and we have a little seat if you want to sit down. And because a lot of people the first time, we know that it takes a lot of courage for a lot of people walk through the door. So we just like, hi, do you want a cup of tea? Let them sit down. Sometimes they just want to like sit. And I've seen this happen time and again. The first time they come in, they have a cup of tea, they sit down, and they leave after 5 minutes. And then they come back a week later. They have a cup of tea, they sit, maybe they look at a book or two, maybe they buy something, they leave. By the 5th time, they're dragging their friends in, they're giving them a tour. So I love watching that.
Doesn't work like that in the light bulb store, by the way.
Oh. So that's what I love.
What about ages?
Ages?
Yeah, like what age group? So it's primarily women, and then women with their spouses, I suppose, or
we get lots of men on their own.
Okay.
We get lots of couples of all varieties. Not a lot of gay couples, but and ages generally like 28, 32, 55, 60.
Oh, really? So it's not young, but mature-ish to older. Okay.
When you're young, you're kind of still exploring. You're kind of bouncing around, having a good time. Mm-hmm. You don't really need variety much. You're sort of figuring things out. That's what I find. So, we do get young folks coming in, and we do, a lot of sex shops won't let you come in until you're 18. But we don't have anything on display that's pornographic.
Right. Okay.
And we figure if you're 16 and you want a vibrator, that's your right. You get a vibrator. We have parents come in with their kids, kind of a coming of age, like, let's get you some condoms, let's get you some lube. Do you want a vibrator or a penis sleeve to just, explore on your own? We don't get that a lot, but once in a while. So we think everybody's welcome. We just can't sell you any porn if you're under 18. But otherwise, you can come in, you can look, you can ask questions, you can shop, and you can not usually attend workshops because we're often showing explicit videos to help illustrate some things.
Do you think they should be allowed to attend workshops?
We use our judgment on that. Generally, they're not really interested, and it's very rare that people request that. I do teach also in some high schools and universities, but usually you're 18 more or less by then.
Yeah.
So, I just kind of make it a little bit different then. I cater it to the audience a little bit.
Are you paid to speak at the schools? Or is it a volunteer work?
Most of the schools is volunteer.
Oh, really?
And it's usually just the alternative schools, because the mainstream schools. Well, and now we have a whole other situation going on with sex ed in schools. So,
that's a topic, isn't it?
It's a topic.
You changed the subject on me. They were getting political there. What are the new trends? And how are things changed? What people used to like to what they like now? What's popular?
When I first opened the store, it was really hard to find sex toys or vibrators in particular that weren't large, beige, veiny penis shapes.
Okay.
And that was pretty much it.
And is there a problem with that particularly? Does that gross people out? Or?
Well, it's one particular fantasy.
Right.
Generally, the straight male fantasy of what all women should and do want.
So made by men for women.
Correct.
Okay.
And most women a lot of women weren't as comfortable shopping. And so it was often they were sending their friends or,
Sure.
boyfriends or partners in. And then around, I would say 15 years ago, things started to really shift. The other thing is that most of the toys were made of materials that weren't necessarily healthy. They were often toxic.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, this is what people don't know. So latex is used in a lot of toys,
Yes.
and there's a softener that makes latex soft called phthalates. PHTH,
Yeah, sure.
right. And in Europe, for example, they've banned phthalates in kids' toys because kids put everything in their mouths.
Sure.
And it's been linked to infertility in male and female lab rat experiments. So sex toys are not regulated, though. And you will notice on most packaging, it will say, for novelty purposes only, which means buy this as a gag gift, give it to your friend, but don't really use it.
Right.
This is just, as a fun thing.
Huh.
And that gets them out of any kind of liability. So most sex toys were made of latex, which made them inexpensive and soft. And they were also dollar store quality. Like you pretty much knew if you bought it, it might last you 3 or 4 times. If you're really lucky, you'd get, 12 or 15 times out of it. And also there were no brand names that people recognized. So you'd go into a store and you'd be like, okay, well, here's a pink 1-inch one, and here's another pink 1-inch one. Well, I'm just going to buy the less expensive one, right?
Of course, yes.
So they were just out cheaping each other. Everything was moving to China. 18 years ago, we started
So
to
it was
see...
a race to the bottom.
Yeah, it was about mass consumerism.
Sure.
Right? And just like, let's put things out there. And people didn't really expect things to last. And it was, and you were paying outrageous prices for crappy toys.
Sure.
So then silicone came on the market, and silicone had been in dildos, which are non-vibrating, but silicone came out in vibrators now, and they were good quality. They came with warranties.
So silicone is better?
Silicone is better. So you use silicone now in a lot of baking things, right? Because it's heat resistant, so you can boil it to sterilize it. It's non-porous, so you can actually clean it properly, because latex has little tiny pores in it, which means that any sexual juices, lube, whatever, gets stuck in there, you can't actually clean it.
It's trapped in there.
It's trapped in there. So silicone was used in medical equipment, was decided this is, the premium sex toy material for something that's soft. And so we had good quality companies like Fun Factory, like Lalo, that came out and they started making really nice designs designed by women that looked not like penises. And there's still penises for people who want their toys to look like penises, but not everybody wants that. And they don't have to be big. Not everybody wants something big.
Sure.
And so things really changed, and sort of sexuality kind of came out of the closet a little bit. The packaging was nicer. The designs were more interesting. They were more designed for pleasure in mind. And now there's a lot of different companies who are coming up with really interesting, innovative ideas. And now, they're starting out on Indiegogo, putting things out there. And so there's lots of people who are sort of putting their ideas out there. And it's a little bit easier to do that now. You don't have to have a mass company take you on. You can become your own company and start marketing your own product online.
So that's an interesting change. It goes from, sort of in the closet and not sure what you're getting to now it's very open and there's testing and these things are made for this use.
Yep.
And you don't have to worry about cleaning it. It can be cleaned. That's a massive transformation.
Yeah. It's a big change.
Wow. Like I would never have suspected that. I would have expected for sure it was regulated. Is it still not? It's still unregulated?
No.
Wow.
No. Health Canada sometimes has opinions about lubes. And ingredients in lubes, or whether it's whether you have to get a FDA or whatever.
So the lighting business is regulated.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. You can,
there's
electrocute
mercury.
yourself.
There's mercury in light bulbs.
Right? Okay.
Right, so
that's a big deal.
Right. Well, we're not putting mercury in our bodies. It gets there by accident, not on purpose.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we're talking about is getting infected or having some sort of being exposed to something. So, I'm very glad to hear that actually.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. So, politics aside,
yes.
What would you add to the education for young people, maybe high school age or?
What would you say to them if they were, on their way forward in life and being sensitive to various diverse backgrounds, different people? You go to, let's say, you go to a high school and you know that there's going to be, Christians and Muslims and atheists and, people that are of different types. Would you break them up into different groups, or how would you speak to them as one group?
I think I would speak to them as one group, because when you break people up, then some people have some information, some people don't. And then what happens is the kids from one group try and educate the kids from the other group, and chances are they're going to get something wrong.
Right.
My kids have been coming to me with questions forever. And
how old are your children?
So 15 and 12.
Okay. So they're at that age.
What age?
Well, I think there's times where you talk about things, and I have 4 children.
Yeah.
So, and there's times where you get very specific.
Yep.
With things, and this is how there's the technical aspect we talked about.
Yep.
I think there's a time to be technical, and there's a time to be a little more birds and the bees.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they're younger.
Yeah.
You don't have to be technical with them, and when they're younger. I mean, my opinion.
Yeah. I've been talking about sex with them for a long, long time, starting with consent, talking about bodies. So the conversation does change, and certainly for my eldest, it's much more around consent.
Boy or girl?
Both boys.
Okay.
And it's more around the intricacies of consent, because we just say no means no. Well, what does that mean in a practical sense? Really?
Right.
And people are nervous about asking, how do I ask somebody? Right? And when we get nervous, we just do. We just do it. We're like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do this and hope it's okay. So I like to talk about, how do you put on a condom? Not like, how do you put on a condom physically? It's like, when do you bring it up? What do you do while you're reaching for it? What do you say while you're doing it? How do you broach the topic of safer sex? And is somebody on birth control, about STIs, So my approach is more about like the practical, how do you do these things? And also, how do you say no? Because that's really great to say, just say no. But sometimes we feel pressure. We think everybody's doing it, which in reality is not true. We think we're supposed to. We think that this is going to bring us, some kind of self-esteem or prowess or something, in my social group. It might bring me pleasure. Very often it doesn't.
It's also hard to think when you're terrified too.
Yeah, completely.
Like a lot of people would be scared out of their minds.
Yeah.
I think, especially I.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not gonna speak to my own experience, but I mean, when you're at that a young age and you're thinking, a lot of times you're extremely nervous.
Yeah. Well, think about like if you were going to go bungee jumping. Have you ever gone bungee jumping?
Yeah, sure.
Have you ever done it?
I've jumped out of an airplane. Have I bungee jumped?
God.
No, I haven't
Okay.
bungee jumped. No.
So can you imagine?
But I remember going near the door, like shaking, literally shaking.
Yeah. So can you imagine trying to think about how am I going to ask this person
Sure.
when you're in that moment, right? How am I going to say, is it okay to jump now? And do you want to jump with me? And like your whole mind is racing, and you're filled with fear and adrenaline, and trying to think clearly in that moment. We're expecting a lot, I think, especially for the first few times. So,
for sure.
So
it's easier to talk to the 28 to 65-year-olds.
I think so, because they have a context now, and they have some experiences to think about, and
They know what they're
realize,
after.
Yeah, and they know what they want.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough thing because, and I think it's different now than it. I think there's issues we've created in our society that didn't exist in the past.
Like what?
I think that kids have more access to pornography at ages when they shouldn't.
Yeah, age 10 is the average age.
Yeah, I think that hurts them somehow.
Yeah.
I think it's particularly hard for boys, and they begin to think about women as sexual objects.
Yep.
I think that's a problem more than it has ever been today. I think it's worse now than ever.
No, I would agree with you. I think that most porn does not portray much intimacy.
Yeah, there's not a lot of kissing.
And I think there's a lot of expectation on both sides about what performance looks like, right? Like, oh, my penis has to stay hard for, a half hour. I'm supposed to do this. It's supposed to be this big. It's supposed to look this way, and women, I must be able to orgasm during intercourse. Like I had a workshop last night of 15 women on orgasms. And when I asked them all like what they wanted to learn, they, 14 out of 15 10 out of 15 said, I want to learn how to orgasm during intercourse without any clitoral stimulation. And I said to them, I said, okay, that's fine. We can talk about ways that you can enhance your pleasure and ways that you can stimulate the G-spot during intercourse, yada, yada. But I said, look, there's 14 of you who don't. Does that mean there's something wrong with 14 of you? Or does that mean, or does that mean that maybe this is normal?
Yeah.
And our expectations maybe are not accurate.
Are not aligned with reality.
What's reality,
Sure.
right? And so I think that's part of that's always been an issue since Freud, that, and before Freud, that we're supposed to
Maybe
orgasm
Antony
during
and
intercourse.
Cleopatra. I don't know. Go keep going back.
Yeah.
You can probably keep going
Yeah.
back.
So that's always been an issue, that we think that women are supposed to orgasm this way. I said, look, if men couldn't orgasm during intercourse, do you think we'd put the same pressure on them?
I don't think we'd be here.
That's true. We wouldn't. And we'd have a much healthier planet as a result.
Yeah. Possibly, yeah. You keep going down these rabbit holes. You're going down these rabbit holes. So so you're talking to these women, and they all want to learn to do something, and basically you're saying, yes, but we can talk about it, but let's not put any pressure here. Not. This is not like learning to use a drill.
Right.
Everyone can do it at the end of the day. Some
Yeah.
people learn it. Why don't you take the pressure off? Maybe, I don't know.
Right. Well, and pressure kills our eroticism, kills our orgasms.
Sure.
And even if it's a really great pressure where a partner is like, I really want you to have lots of pleasure and I want you to feel this good. And it's like, oh, that's really lovely, but that actually makes it harder for me to get there.
Sure.
So I like to reframe it to, let's maximize pleasure, whether it includes orgasm or not. Full body, whether it's, mind, spirit, body, everything. Let's maximize pleasure and intimacy as opposed to how many orgasms. I don't know about you, but I've had orgasms that, I had one, but it wasn't very interesting.
That's an interesting thing, how I think there's a big difference between how, like, men's experience of sex. There's it's very linear. Mm-hmm. Right? It's like, this is what happens and then it's over. Right? Or, and I mean, maybe I'm been married a long time.
Yeah.
But I mean, for women, there seems like there's a much more diverse experience available to them than there is for men. Am I wrong about that?
I think that men have been limited by what we've been told is what sex is for men, because a lot of men, when they discover
it's
more
procreation. What am I missing?
Well, it seems to be working for you with 4 kids.
Yeah.
But I think once men also discover the more intimate, spiritual, emotional side of things, they find that very powerful as well. But men aren't taught to value those things. So we don't, men aren't socialized to think that those are important things, or that they should want that, or that makes a good man.
I think there definitely is, there is an I don't know how to break it up terminology wise, but there's a lack of appreciation for sensuality and eroticism, I think, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think that's a problem. Just in like listening to people talk, like other men,
right.
there's the spiritual element there too as well. Mm-hmm. But I think that part of that is also, I don't know how to put it the right way. I think part of that is they don't have that in their life as a whole.
Sometimes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like they're not spiritual people.
Right. And I mean, I think we all
they're
are.
Not sensual. I think we all can be.
We all are. I think often that's cut off, because it's like, oh, I have to make money. I have to be a stud. I have to, act this way. I can't show emotions. If you're told you can't show emotions, how are you gonna?
I think women are told that
emotions
now too, actually.
Yeah, really? Interesting.
Yeah, I do.
I haven't noticed that, but
I think women are. I think that masculine traits, and I'm not talking about men and women. I'm talking about the masculine,
right,
and the feminine,
yeah.
right. And I think the masculine, meaning men can embody feminine traits, and women can embody, and we all embody some a little bit of each.
Yep.
Right. So there's some, and sometimes the most seductive thing about a man is his feminine side. I actually just read The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene. You know that book?
I don't know it.
You wouldn't like it.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of dark in a way.
Oh.
It's how to seduce people.
Right.
And so,
erotically or just in general?
No, technically.
You love the technical.
Men, well, I mean, that's a masculine trait.
Yeah. Completely.
Right? It is.
Yes.
It doesn't
No,
mean
you're right.
that it doesn't. It's in a sense of how we look at the moon and the sun and this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And when you embody masculine traits, one of those things is showing less emotion and being more
Right.
practical and pragmatic, right?
Yep.
And I think women are, because they're saying, traditional, you have to go into that sphere of influence, and I think they're being taught that as well. And I think it's important for people to be able to show emotions. I think they need to be able to, especially with their partners, and be comfortable there. And I think there's something in the way we're doing things where there's a mismatch, and I think everybody feels it. Like it's more mismatched now maybe than ever, although we're kind of know more than ever. Or more aware of it than we've ever been. I don't know what it is. What is it? I've interviewed a lot of people on this show, and this theme kind of comes up.
Does it keep coming up?
Yeah,
Okay.
that something's wrong right now. And there's people that, like, for example, there's people that really support Donald Trump, and there's people that really hate Donald Trump. And then there's but both of them are indicating that something's really wrong. And I don't know what it is, and I'd like to know.
Well, I think throughout history, we've always thought something was wrong.
I know. It's almost like
I mean,
sky's
it's always,
falling.
I think life can always be better. And depending on whether you're someone who feels like you should have more or deserve more, or whether you're noticing that your people used to have more and you have less,
Right.
or you have less than other people.
So it's this outward-looking comparison.
I think so. I think often, yeah, because we, most of us are pretty happy with, enough food in our tummies and a roof over our heads and people who love us. That's a pretty good way to live our lives. But then we're like, oh, but that person has a nicer roof over their head.
They got a new Tesla.
Yeah, and they have fancier food, and they get to get that made by other people and don't have to make it themselves.
And I think our society kind of encourages that a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
Like fuels
big
that
race.
envy
Sure.
that's out there.
Yeah.
And when people come to your store, it seems like it's about them.
That's
It's internal, not external. You're not projecting. Is there a sense that one would brag about sex? I don't know. I guess there is a lot of that.
Sure. Yeah,
but at your store, you're encouraged. Like, how do you handle that? The braggadociousness or whatever.
I want you to brag about how good you feel. And not that it's better than anybody else, but like, wow, I feel really good. This feels really great. I'm really happy with myself. And if that can be infectious, right? Like people who feel good about themselves, walk confidently, know what they want, treat each other with respect. Like, I think that's really infectious. People who talk down about other people or talk about other people's conquests, I don't feel that's very infectious.
Yeah.
It's not something we aspire to. So, I'm hoping that people feel good, because they're bringing pleasure in their lives in a way that's respectful of other people, the world around them, and it's not about a comparison. Oh, I had more orgasms than you, so I feel good about myself. No,
I think that's a bigger problem for men than women. But
yeah.
I think it's a problem for everybody. There's like this outward looking, and that's what I think that's where pornography can be an issue. It's like we can all walk across the straight beam, but you can't do a backflip on it. Yeah, like the girl in the Olympics did.
Right. Yeah.
It's train, whatever. I think there's some unrealistic expectations.
Absolutely. And I do think that, porn, people use it as education because we don't really have much else to compare it by except our own experiences. And so we look to that for ideas, we look to that for education, and unfortunately we get a very skewed view. We don't see the parts that are edited out.
Sure.
We don't see the fluffers.
Yeah.
How much of it is genuine? Well, any movie is not genuine.
For sure.
Right? It's
They're
all
actors.
acted. Yeah, and same thing with porn. I mean, there's some realism to some extent, but ultimately, you're getting hopefully paid. But that's another problem, is that most people in porn, if you're watching porn for free, that means that you are watching pirated content. You should pay for your porn.
Pay for your porn.
Right? Because, who's if you're watching it for free, who's getting paid?
I never dismantled it. I never thought about it from that perspective. I mean, people are the YouTube generation.
Yeah.
Would think that all videos are free. That all content should
Yes.
be free. Anything on the internet should be not paid for.
Right. And so YouTube...
But they're paying for it with their privacy.
They're paying
by
for it with
giving
their
up their
privacy.
privacy.
Yes, and they're also, so when it comes to YouTube in general, like the if you have whatever 1 million views, you get some money from that,
Sure.
right? When it comes to sexual videos, you don't get that. You don't get anything for that.
And that seems like you, if anything, and you can you control it after? Like, I guess you sign some documents and then your pictures of you naked having sex belong to someone else forever?
Yes. Don't ever decide to do porn if you ever think you want to go into politics.
Yeah, well, maybe it would work for you. I don't know. It seems to work for some people.
Well, that's true. It does. Yeah, it could.
It's part of a strategy. It's part of a whole
good
strategy.
Work. Yeah. But no, think a little bit about it, because once your image is out there, it's out there.
It's not completely out of the realm of possibility that Kim Kardashian could run for the leadership of the Democratic Party of the United States. It's not out of the realm.
That is very
true. Like, when you think
true.
about it, it's not like ridiculous to think about.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds. I don't know.
No, you got a very valid point there. But most people who are saying that they're making ethical porn, where the performers are asked to do what they want to do, they are asked, so they're given choices about safer sex supplies, who they do things with, what kind of activities they do, and that they're treated with respect on set. So, the camera people can't go and cop a feel just because they feel like it or talk down to them. Wow. So there's a whole realm of sort of feminist or ethical porn that's out there where people are paid appropriately, and that a lot of people are saying that you should get your porn from there.
And you
supporting that side of the industry.
Support this at your store with good for her.
Yes.
And you have these there's like an industry accreditation. So, for example, you have forest products or whatever,
right.
Or in lighting business you have DLC certified, or is there an industry?
So we many years ago we did an event called the Feminist Porn Awards.
Ooh,
and
the feminist. I got to write that down.
So we started recognizing people who were making porn that was not perpetuating stereotypes about women, about people of color, about people with disabilities, because often people are really fetishized in mainstream porn.
Sure.
And so we were looking for different stories, people who were treated well on set. And then the word feminist, we decided was a bit limiting, and people sort of thought, well, that means men aren't involved, or it's only lesbian, or it's only like people with tattoos and blue hair. Yeah,
I was going to ask you what is a feminist, because it comes up on
there's many different kinds.
I know it's very confusing. It actually is, because you go from, it's almost like a spectrum.
Yeah, completely. And everybody's definition is different.
Yes.
Just like if you asked, what's a Christian? You're going to have many different definitions, right?
Someone who believes that Christ rose from the dead.
I would say there are some people who wouldn't believe that, who are Christian.
That would call themselves. I think, well, if there's different people that say that everyone living in Canada that is more than one generation here is a Christian.
Wow. That's a really
because
interesting...
they live in the West, and the West was built by Christians.
Oh, for heaven's sakes! Okay,
yeah,
well,
so
I wouldn't buy into that.
No, I think, yeah. So I guess I think it's a little bit different. I think feminism is very personal, and I think Christianity generally isn't as personal. You have to subscribe to some set of dogma that somebody says.
Yeah, sure, and you listen to different things and you decide.
But every woman has her own feminism, I think.
And every man has their own feminism, and every trans person has their own feminism. So, I mean, for me, feminism is not just about equality of women and men. It's also about inclusivity of trans people. It's also an intersectional perspective.
Well, there's a note here that you have special hours for trans only.
Women and trans, yeah. So that's Sundays from noon till 2. For people who, maybe
So women and trans, is that important? Is it just for the trans women, or is it
no,
both?
it's anybody who identifies as women and or trans.
I have to wait in the car.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because maybe somebody has a history of sexual assault.
Okay, so you're being sensitive to their...
Yeah, right. Or just feels like they don't want to discuss sex. If they're often worried that there's a guy who's going to be there who's listening in and getting off on it. The reality is, I have met so many fabulous men through the store.
Sure.
And the men are so sweet and so thoughtful, and the men who have the guts to walk into a store called Good for Her are really pretty great guys.
I would do it if I was selling light bulbs.
So the other thing is you could do a sociological study
Now you got me.
on men's and women's shopping behavior if you stood in our store. So women, they come in and they ask questions and they hum and haw and they think about, do I want to spend this much money on this? And maybe this one's better and whatever. They take like 20, 30 minutes, sometimes more, to decide on what toy to get.
Boom, boom, gone.
Men walk in, they're either, I want this, or what's the best thing? And within 5 minutes, they've chosen and they're out the door, pay cash, gone.
So sex toys and groceries are the same for me then.
Oh, yeah?
I'm hitting the milk aisle. Where's that list?
You're not browsing.
Boom, 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 out.
You're not contemplating.
I don't think it's a sex toys thing.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's I think it's more of a mission thing. This is the mission.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think it probably applies to other industries.
Yeah.
But that's what I've noticed, is like, wow, what a difference. So for people who are nervous about like
women
guys
do the same thing here on the counter.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they hum and haw over light bulbs.
For sure.
Should I get this one or that one?
Yeah, and we're generalizing. How dare I? We're generalizing about these women out there, right? They all act like this. Yeah. No, but it's honestly, anecdotally, I said when talk, it'll take 3 times as long for a woman to make a choice. Yeah. And usually it's because she's trying to compare price with this and the light output and get it all right. Whereas dudes just in and out. Yeah. Where's that ballast I need? Right there. Okay, gone.
Well, and I think there's also an issue of income. So, a lot of women are a little more price sensitive. They don't have the same income, right? And so they're a bit like,
I read a weird statistic. You know that?
Yes. What is it?
Ready for this one?
Yes.
So men make more than women.
Yeah.
Okay. But women spend 80% of the money.
So if they're in a heterosexual relationship, but that's probably because they're buying light bulbs. They're also getting their hair done so they look good. They're getting their nails done. They're making sure their wardrobe looks good. Isn't that weird though?
Like it's a weird statistic. Like you hear it, and then I reflect it, but I'm like, that my wife spends all my money. That's true. Actually, no, but
probably a lot of it on your kids.
Yeah, for sure. No, the transactions, but just volume of transactions.
Yeah,
for
completely.
Sure. Yeah. Whether you look at it cash wise or you look at it just number of transactions, it's more. Yeah. Which is interesting. I don't know what that means, if it means anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if you looked at single men versus single women. What that balance would be, how much people spend.
I'd like to see, like, if they, what kind of decisions too. Like, I can see you're interested in people. Period. Yeah. Like, you're kind of observant.
We're bizarre creatures.
We
with
are
lots
bizarre.
of interesting habits.
I always wonder, like, why do people make this decision? So I read this book, The Art of Seduction. Right. It's kind of a dark book. I didn't like it. Yeah. It's very what's the word? Predator prey related.
Yeah.
And it's not for men or women, it's for both. But here's the different types of seducers. Here's the different types of victims. He uses the word victim. Yeah. Right. In the book. And he goes through all these different, and then historically their representations in historical literature or in fact. And I was reading it and I thought, man, there isn't a lot of room for, being in love with somebody in that book. You know what I mean? There was no room for that. It was like this person, this is how Cleopatra targeted Caesar, Julius Caesar. Right. And then when he died, she targeted Mark Antony. Yeah. And she held on to the power of this and da-da-da-da.
Well, but if you think about it also, marriage, if you're thinking about that kind of seduction, was very much a business transaction. Right? Whether you had a dowry. Sure. And that this is like, it's like, you know what? Who do I want to marry that's going to make sure that I'm not poor? And I can afford.
I think that's the same now in some ways.
To get better completely. That I can afford to, get healthy and pay for a doctor if I'm sick, and somebody who's going to have enough food on the table and who's going to make good food and not spend all the money and has going to produce good kids who are going to look after us when we're older. So certainly that, was very much a part of the traditional. And also you couldn't just marry anybody way back when,
but I'll tell you this:
you had to stay within your class.
There was, but there was a lot of monkey business going on between the classes.
Oh, completely.
According to this book, for sure.
Yeah. But no, you're not going to get married, though.
No, this idea that people didn't have sex in the past is ridiculous.
Oh,
man.
No.
People were back in the, especially if you read the romantic literature in Spain or in France or whatever, they have a long history of this kind of we say it.
Shenanigans.
Yeah, shenanigans, or the world that, people don't know about, the private world or whatever. Yeah. So, well.
It's easier to keep private without social media and GPSs to follow you where you're going.
People want to be open about it, though. There's like I think it's different. I think they want to broadcast their status through their sexuality in a way.
Some people do.
I think it's more common now than it has been in the past.
Because I think it's more acceptable.
And I think it's
a real
fetishized
currency.
more.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm not sure. I was talking to another a girl that runs. She's a black girl, and she does a podcast called the Issa Sisterhood, and that's slang for it's a sisterhood. And they she was talking to me about the fetishization of black features.
Yes.
By non-black women, the lips and this kind of stuff. And I don't know anything about that technically. Technically, I don't know what the answer is, but she was hurt by it. It was real.
Yeah,
the
completely.
fetishization was painful.
Yeah,
it was dehumanizing. I could, whether or not this sort of cultural appropriate, throw whatever word around you want.
Yeah,
it was dehumanizing a little bit.
Yes,
and I think that comes from. There's a sexual element to the fetish that I think most people, I'm a little uncomfortable with.
Yeah, completely. Well, that's what a fetish is. It's very much sexual. And I think that's the bottom line, is that somebody felt hurt by it.
Yes.
Right? That she felt, that really affected her. And I think that's, we need to pay attention to that.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with fetishes.
But if you really love leather, that's great.
Right.
The cow might mind, but otherwise you're not really harming anyone.
Sure. So what's the problem here? Because in the past, fetishes would be kind of like, I have this fetish or whatever. Or shoes.
Well, when it's about people, that's the difference. So when it's about a certain...
But can you control it? If it's a fetish, it's kind of in control of you in a way. Is it not?
That's interesting. There's nature versus nurture, and that whole argument. But... we're not always attracted to who we want to be attracted to. And I saw a really interesting documentary many years ago about a guy who's a pedophile. Like, in terms of he's never done anything illegal, but his orientation is that he is attracted to young boys and girls. Now, at the time, he was like 18 or so. I think he's probably closer to 30 now. But I found it fascinating, especially as a parent. That was his attraction. That was his fetish. Now, do you act on that? Do you, and he partly made this documentary to keep himself accountable so he wouldn't do something. But, say I might be attracted to whatever, like, amputees. Right? How do I treat those people? And do I see them only as an amputee, or do I see them as a whole person? And I mean, I don't want to get into the politics of that because I don't really know, and I'm sure I'm going to say something offensive, which I don't want to do.
Right.
But what I do know is, people of color, for example, who do feel like, you don't want me running the country, but you want to eat my food and you want to fetishize my body, and you don't want to be my friend. That I think is part of it, is what I would assume to be that you're compartmentalizing people as just features or just what you produce. It's a commodity, like as slavery was, right? As opposed to, wow, you're a fabulous person and you happen to have these features that are really great. So I don't think it's wrong to be attracted to certain things, and certain features and certain people, as long as you are respectful in how you approach them, how you treat them, and that they're not tokenized or they're not fetishized. That's
like red high heel shoes, good.
Red high heel shoes, I'm sure would very love to be fetishized. So
there's two different. We need a new word. So you said that we're not always attracted to who we want to be attracted to.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Ask lots of queer people. They would rather not be attracted to the same sex because it makes life a lot more complicated.
I actually read a study as well. I do about people that were attracted to children, but weren't criminals, like never did anything.
Yeah. And
one of the guys was saying that his note was, when he was talking to the researchers, like, that you need to give us someone to talk to about this.
Yes. And
because
the problem is that you're shunned.
Yes.
And if you talk about it, somebody's going to report you to the police.
That's right.
And next thing you know, you're a criminal without having done anything.
But these are real people.
Yes, absolutely. And they're really struggling.
Yes.
This guy in this documentary moved cities to finally find a professional he could talk to deal with this.
Because they have all this stuff where if you tell them something and they're going to call the police on you.
Right.
Yeah, no, I read that. I can't remember where it was. I was reading that and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, well, that's, a therapist and anyone who has that kind of responsibility, if they feel like there's an imminent danger that somebody's going to be harmed, they have to report you.
Yeah, wow. We've gotten way off topic here.
We
Holy
have.
mackerel.
We've gone all over the place.
I know. That's what happens in this studio. I hope I haven't made you uncomfortable in any way.
No, I'm all good.
Okay,
you? Did I make you uncomfortable?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah?
A little bit. I don't know if I would register for any of the classes still. I'm still thinking about that a little bit.
We're traumatized you. You're going to have nightmares about it.
No, not at all. What's interesting? I think that it's an important service that you offer.
Thank you.
I think, a lot of people are trapped in themselves, and it's nice and refreshing to meet somebody who can just, like say, hey, it's okay if you have questions about something like this. Mm-hmm. Because not everybody has a mother they can talk to or a sister they can talk to or anyone like that. And I think it's important for people to be able to express and, in a safe place like that. So
it's part of our lives, right? We've got lots of different aspects of ourselves, and some people want to talk about it a lot and some people don't really want to, and that's okay too.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that it's nice to have a place where you can go and,
yes,
you don't have to buy anything either.
Right. Yep.
You can come here and ask for energy efficiency advice, but, it's not weird for you to come in here and say, hey, I'm not sure what I'm doing, but I'd like to, which bulb is the most efficient or whatever. Sure. But I think for you, what you do is way more important for people than what, the lighting business. But
it's all relative. But, if you need lights, you need to see. That's important. And we all most of us use lights in our lives.
It's the most, I do a lighting podcast as well.
Right.
It's the most, it's the greatest productivity tool ever invented.
Aha.
Is artificial light.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had a professor from Dr. Venkat from the University of Toronto.
Yeah.
And he came on the show. He came in here actually.
Yeah.
I spoke to him. A very great guy from India. Super smart, but also super gracious. And he was like, it is the greatest productivity tool.
Right. I'm sure. Yeah.
So we're happy about it.
Go all night long.
I think that's a great point to close, Carlyle. Thank you for coming on the show.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it as well. And please give us your website.
It's www.goodforher.com.
And if people can just come off the street to your store on Harvard, it's Harvard and Bathurst?
Yep, 175.
175
Good
Harvard.
to know the number because you might walk by it.
Yeah, okay. So go by there if you want to take some classes or get some advice on the what would you say? What am I talking about here? Sex toys?
Sex and pleasure.
Sex and pleasure. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Carlyle Jansen.
Thank you.
GetAGripStudios.com, folks. That's right. Content creation studio for new media. Yeah, in the past, everyone says, just get yourself a camcorder and a little recorder or download this app on your phone. You got the Joe Rogan experience or whatever. Guess what? It doesn't work that way. Yeah, it can work that way, but you're going to find a grind. If you go to any of these podcast websites, hosting websites, you're going to find a ton of people that have 1 or 2 episodes. You know why? Because the grind of recording, producing, and then distributing a show is a lot. People way underestimate that portion of creating a show. And they get lost in that as opposed to just getting focused on their message. I spent, 2.5 years being lost. And now all I do is record. I just sit down and I record. I worry about my message. I worry about my guests. And I don't worry about anything else related to creating the show. That's taken care of by Matt. Hey, Matt, he's in there. Matt takes care of that. Matt's not that busy. He needs you. Just kidding. He's actually pretty busy. But hey, this studio's open whenever you're open. It's open wherever you are. It's virtual. Around the world, man. You want to start a show? You don't even have to be in Toronto, man. You can be in Beijing. You can be in Rio de Janeiro. You can be in, or if you're a traveler, you can use Get a Grip Studios all the time, man. You don't have to worry about anything anywhere in the world. That's where at the time we live like Greek gods, son. We fly around the world. We connect around the world. We can see each other, man. It's a great time to be alive. And if you have a message, you got to go to GetAGripStudios.com. Thank you for going there and hiring us to do your podcast. Oh, you haven't done that yet, but you should. Okay, Carlyle, had a great time with you. Special lady. It's interesting. It's always interesting to meet people like that have really gone through the steps of something. There's something about being an entrepreneur on a certain topic that really hones you, that really teaches you about it. And
Carlyle Jansen has been an entrepreneur for women's sexuality. Like that's such an angle that there's so many people that are experts in women's sexuality or in sexuality in general. But Carlyle is making a living with the tools and the different things required to make your experiences better. And that teaches you something totally different than you would learn in a university. And that's what I really felt from Carlyle. It was like a real world experience, all the interactions she's had over the years, and she shared so many with me, and I really appreciate it. So Carlyle, thanks for coming on the show. If you want to go check out her store, it's at 175 Harvard Street at Bathurst, or you can check her out on social media, website, all that kind of stuff will be on the getagriponlife.com website. Thank you, Carlyle, for coming on the show. I really enjoyed my time with you. That's episode number 10, Get a Grip on Life.